All right, so why don't you start us off with letting us know your muscle?
I've got the supraspinatus. Supraspinatus is a great muscle. It's one of the 4 rotator cuff muscles. It abducts the humerus and the frontal plane. It originates in the supraspinous fossa of the scapula and inserts into the greater tuberosity of the humerus.
Nice. So that's one of the few muscles that is works at just one action. So Keith will be a one action person. Josh had a couple. The biceps right here. That's, oh, we have the biceps. This beautiful sucker right there. So what did I just do?
Flexion.
Flexion of the elbow, but it also does this.
Scaption.
No, so
Well, from that still flexion of the humerus.
flexion of the humerus. It's underneath the corpus brachialis is underneath the bicep brachii. Brachii, that means upper arm. We have your brachial artery, which is right underneath your bicep. You can push your bicep away and you can find the brachial artery. That's where we check our blood pressure. But it also does this.
Supination.
Radial ulnar supination. And so Arnold back in the day would always say, when you do your curls, twist at the top. Now, if you look, I'm not trying to show off or get you guys excited, but if you see when I do this, see, I get a little bit more of a contraction because what I'm doing at the top, I'm supinating. So when you do a bicep curl, yeah, that actually gets you more activation. Coming here, twisting in, coming here, twisting in. That's great. What does that even mean? Keep proximal and distal.
Proximal is closer to midline of the body.
The bicep, and you're going to go up. It's like shooting ladders, if you guys remember that game. So you start up here on the scapula. That's where it originates. That's the proximal portion, and then
for the distal, that's opposite. That's further away
and then
from the midline.
It comes down like pretty far down here. And the cool thing about that, where it inserts the biceps tendon, that's what dictates the peak. So if you look at this little white part, bicep tendon, that little white is going to signify a tendon, like that's going to be like an aponeuroses or fascia, that white stuff over there. So this tendon comes all the way down. It's like your mid forearm. And so if that tendon inserts closer to the elbow, you're going to get more of a peak. If it's further away, you get less of a peak. So that means we need to cut our arm and start pulling on that tendon? No, that's your genetics. Mom and dad determine your peak. There's nothing you can do. There's no exercise that you can do. Even if you listen to Athlete X who says that, no, you cannot change the way the peak is.
And then the doctor was talking that the more contraction you have in the lengthened state would then cause more stress and damage and more growth at the most distal part of the muscle, and then vice versa.
So think of preacher curls. Think of, you have your curl, it's kind of like a preacher variation where we're going there. And then we asked him, great, he loves it. When I say nerd, I always say as a compliment, but I'm like, well, Doc, well, what about the proximal? What exercise will those be? Because I'm thinking I need to go to the gym and go do those right now. And he's like, oh shit, that's a good question. So then we talked about it. I think Keith is even the one who threw out the idea with what did you say?
The one I threw in was the drag curls, but then we were also talking about chin-ups.
Yeah, chin-ups, because if you're at the very top, that's going to make it maybe the most challenging. Maybe a drag curl where you have your bar and you drag it up. Now, I don't know if it's the Mac computer, Josh, or just my arms look absolutely massive, but whew, I like that view. So the drag curl gets your biceps. So it's like knowing that information is cool because now you go out there and you implement it. That's what tacticians do. You learn the science. We don't just sit behind our computer, put our glasses on and our coat and just nerd out and write an article and that's it. Now we have the data, go do it and train them. These are more type 1 muscle fibers, so you can train your biceps more. Maybe 3 or 4 times a week. Maybe if you do a lot of isolation work, maybe you do a month of just doing a ton of multi-jointed stuff. Every other day you do some bicep variation. supinated. Keith's up.
Question I have is what we were talking about the other day about the cable row for
The what?
lat engagement
Oh,
for
cable.
cable row.
Mhm.
Yep, for cable row with lat engagement. I know that the lats, they die hard. The extension is one of the actions of the lats. And I know we were talking about, to kind of cue the client to not have their elbow go too far back behind their body, that if they just get to the midline, that would be good enough for that.
Mhm.
But for extension though, when you're extending, isn't this still extension, and would that still be even stronger lat engagement if we still brought the elbow behind for a lat cable row?
All righty. So let's go to who has the lats?
I do, Nicole.
Perfect. You want to tell us the O and the I?
So the origin is this, I don't know if I'm gonna say this right, but the spinious processes. So it's the T7 to T12 vertebrae, and then the thoracolumbar aponeurosis. So the 9 through 12th ribs, the
Okay, time
inferior
out, time out.
ankle
Oh, sorry. Keep going.
of the scapula, and then the posterior third of the iliac crest. And
Those
then
are the origins,
inferior-
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, stop there. So we have the T7. What does T mean?
thoracic.
Thoracic.
No, that's the Terminator movies. So there's T1, there's T2, there's T3. I'm just joking. Come on. Nicole didn't like that one. Oh, that's your thoracic region. Should have rotation, extension, flexion capabilities there. L is going to be making reference to the lumbar. We're going to have a greater range of motion at the neck. So it comes down and you don't have as much. Thoracic does have a lot, but not nearly as much as you can't do, it's really hard to do this with your thoracic region, get that full range. But you do have, flexion, extension, lateral flexion. But when you get to the lumbar, it's not nearly as mobile. You're looking at like 5 to 15 degrees of range of motion for the lumbar region. Still great to move our spine, doing things like the baby pose or whatever they're called. And it's great to bulletproof your spine. This white stuff is what's called the thoracolumbar fascia or aponeurosis. Aponeurosis is just a medium for tissue to go into. And if you can see behind me in this one, it actually comes over into the glutes. And so contralaterally, your lats do have a connection point into the glutes. So like when you look at running, you have your anterior sling and then you have your posterior sling. So that right lat is connected into your left glute. Some people will really go down the dog hole and be like, okay, well, your left big toe is the reason why you could have shoulder pain. And to a certain degree, sometimes that may hold up, but that's for another story. And then you also have some origin points in the inferior angle of the scapula, which is right here. And then it's going to insert. Now, where's it going to insert?
The floor of the bicipital groove of the humerus.
Great. Okay, let's do a little class experiment. One of the worst things that I'm at, physics, but I'll do my best. Let's bring you here. Made sure to wear my short shorts today. So, all right, you have the string would be your latissimus dorsi. So just look at it from a leverage standpoint. All right, so if I tie this here, I'm going to have a lot of pull. That's essentially what the muscle is going to do. All right, so that's our biomechanics 101, crisp version. All right, so here is the backside. So when I pull to the midline, I'm not going to be pulling it more past this. See how leverage is just now gone? I'm at what's called a mechanical disadvantage. That muscle, if it cannot contract and move the bone. So there's other muscles that are going to do it that have a better mechanical advantage. So that's when you have to look at the other bones that are associated. So maybe that's when the biceps start working more. Because remember, when you're here, well, the bicep isn't fully flexed. Sorry, I'm showing off my biceps today, but it's only there. So you're still going to have more flexion. So maybe when it comes to like a spectrum where tons of lats, now maybe more bicep, maybe more posterior deltoids taking over. Maybe because of retraction on the scapula, you're going to have more rhomboid major, rhomboid minor, trapezius. So other muscles are going to take over. And so also,
Oh, sorry.
no, good.
So pretty much